Howdy folks, Doc here with Last Best Tool, and today I've got 5 tools that I think paid for themselves instantly the moment I used them on a particular job. And I want to hear from you. What tools did you find paid for themselves instantly? And this is more generic application of the tool. Obviously, if you want to crack open an iPhone, you need a particular fastener, and there's really no way around that. Yes, it might pay for itself, but that's not what I mean here. These are general tools that can be applied in all kinds of different situations, and here are some scenarios where the moment I used it, or maybe sometimes in hindsight and thought about it, it paid for itself, and I really could have made things either worse, had to call a pro, which would have cost way more than the tool, or simply didn't do additional damage to something or to myself. And the very first one is safety glasses. The moment something happens that you realize these just saved your eyes, you realize also that not only did they pay for themselves, but just instantly, maybe have saved you hundreds, thousands of dollars, or being disfigured or losing eyesight. And I've had that happen a couple of different times. These particular ones are Snap-ons, and these are not very expensive. They're rebranded. Snap-on makes or sells a whole bunch of different kinds. There's all sorts of different ones that you can get. I would recommend getting good ones, getting adjustable temples here, as well as extendable eyepieces or retractable eyepieces, depending on your face size. And that allows you to fit them perfectly for the job and for comfort. Now, if you don't put these on, they don't do any good. So having them is of no value. It's using them. So I often have a pair with all of the tools that I think should be used only with safety glasses. There's a dedicated pair with them. Some of them, I notice these are getting kind of scratched up. They're dedicated pairs. These I took off my compound sliding miter saw. They actually sit on the handle or sometimes hang from the handle. It means I have to ignore them or move them in order to not use them. And that doesn't happen anymore. Why? Because several times I've had things, in fact recently this summer, I was cutting some rebar using an angle grinder, and literally a piece hit my glasses. I mean, it was kind of substantial, as well as I could feel a couple hit my face, and I realized just instantly in that moment, this went from just an average day to it could have been a trip to the ER. Instantly paid, the $13 or $15 or whatever it is for something like that. So get a pair and wear them. The next one, this showed up recently in another video. It's just a large 15/16 wrench. Doesn't have to be Snap-on, but I picked it up mostly because it was part of a set. It had previous owner marks on it, but I used this in a toilet valve and actually was probably able to prevent doing significant damage to the old rusty pipe the valve was attached to. I had very limited space to work. This allowed me to have that precision and feel necessary with my other hand holding the valve to be able to tell if I was going to break the pipe or loosen the valve. I was able to loosen it, replace it. But the moment I thought about it, these are $70 off the truck. I didn't pay that because it's an old style. But this particular one, I realized even if it was $70 brand new, it prevented me from doing significant damage probably to this old iron pipe that was in the wall, that if I broke it, it was too close to the wall. I'd have to dig out through this 1960s drywall stuff and then start working my way back. And then probably had to call a pro to get in there to do whatever needed to be done. So, just the simple price of having the right tool. And in this case, it's an unusual one, a small, giant wrench. Saved a ton of money probably. This one, I've shown this in several videos. One of my favorite tools. I got it by accident. Snap-on sent me this. It's the Blue Point US 712. This particular thing is one of a series of knives they have. I ordered a different one. This one showed up. It was because the website picture was wrong. But anyway, this guy here, I was using it in some tile and sealant work, and just the speed, the simplicity, I realized I was able to manipulate the grout just how I wanted. When removing it, it saved me a ton of time, and it probably didn't create as big kind of a damage space as if I had used a traditional pry bar, one of my chisels, or something else. So I realized right away these aren't very expensive, but just the simple speed at which I used it saved a lot. And also, I started thinking about it in hindsight, and oftentimes when I'm using, a tool that's, kind of a crude tool, pry bars fit in there, scrapers, chisels, etc., is that the scope of that tool, I usually have to hit the very end of it, which is where it starts to fail as a useful tool in that space before I switch to the next tool. And this one just has a very wide reach. So just outstanding. This guy, Little Klein Tools, this is a 65-200. It's a precision, low-profile screwdriver, reversible switch here. This thing has paid for itself so many times, and first of all, that's easy because it's a fairly inexpensive tool, simple made, but just being able to get way into confined spaces. I was using it, it's paid for itself many times. I actually was using it a little while ago, and I had to get my hand inside a very narrow spot, not the same one where I did the articulating one, another, but it had a bunch of screw heads that had already come through another narrow wall. And I could go in and try to clip all those off or cover them, or I couldn't get in easily with the precision with a glove. But being able to slide my hand in something that's, barely an inch wide, and then be able to manipulate this thing to get a screw slowly backed out, and I was able to get the screw back in. So it probably saved cutting up my hand. It probably saved a load of time. And of course, if I had stripped the screw or I couldn't get to it, I might have to cut through another wall. This one showed up in another video with the idea of paying for itself. I used this to remove, and I've used it several times for the exact same job, and every time I think it just paid for itself instantly. And that was to remove stripped out Torx screws, especially alloyed Torx screws on mountain bike components, and one time on a road bike component. But it was the one that really stood out was a strip Torx holding a disc rotor on a mountain bike hub, and that hub was worth a lot. The whole wheel was, and I didn't want to mess that up. Didn't want to strip it out because then you get uneven as the disc heats up, and if not all screws are used, or if one's too loose or stripped or something, you can end up getting a warping, which then affects the performance. But being able to go in and very gently grab that, with a really good feel and precision, and rotate it out. If you're spending a couple $100 on parts replacing things, the price of a pair of screwdriver or a pair of these screw extraction pliers just doesn't. It's almost a wash. This is another one. I haven't used this much yet, but I'm thinking about using a dedicated pair of screw extraction pliers. So this is the Engineer PZ56. It's just a kind of a smaller form factor slip joint, and I'm actually going to be using this as my main screw extraction plier as much as possible. And it's inexpensive, it's light, it's simple, has a few other features, but oftentimes I might be sacrificing some things to get that screw extraction technology in a plier that I actually need the rest of the features on that plier. But that's definitely one. Let's see, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Tell me in the comments what tools you've used in kind of designed specifically for that job tools you have found paid for themselves instantly, or share your safety glass stories. I did, the first time I ever really realized what could happen is I was working with sulfuric acid in a lab, and I actually I had somehow splashed just a tiny bit after I took off some of my PPE, and it was actually on another surface, and a teeny weeny drop popped into my eye, and you just realize instantly, the entire world could change. It was just so, well, I guess eye-opening. But I will never, ever make a mistake like that again. And a lot of times, I've gotten hit in the face with things and just thought, it's like driving over an icy bridge in the winter and nothing happens. You don't even think much about it. But something could have happened, and it would have been catastrophic if it did. It's such a fine line, so you just simply cannot make a mistake. Anyway, those are my 5. I actually have more, but that's where I'm going to start. Let me know in the comments what yours are. And with that, Doc out.